Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Money and Mindset at 40 Plus, where we invite you to play big and conquer those money fears so you can live the most abundant life ever. I am Sylvia.
And I am Jenny, and there's a special guest here, Sylvia. Who is this between the two of us?
We are so excited to welcome Maryse Harvey. And today's topic, and she's the perfect guest for this topic,
Yes, she
because
is.
we are talking about owning your seat at the table, and Maryse has owned her seat at the table. I believe. Past, she'll tell us a little bit about herself, but past deputy chief of staff for the Minister of Finance's office. And Jenny started the conversation, Sylvia, I can't wait for you to meet her. She's so sweet. And I'm like, I had this deputy chief of staff for the minister's office and sweet, and they didn't go together. But in speaking with Maryse, she had a great topic on that. But Jenny, how do you know each other?
Well, I get the pleasure of introducing Maryse.
Yes.
So I am taking, as you all know, the Royal Roads Executive Coaching Program. And so the first week on our retreat that we have, we get thrown into these Zoom rooms, right? You get thrown into a room. There's 50 different people from all across the country. And lucky me, Maryse is my coaching partner. And she created this space for me, Sylvia, to talk about some like coaching is, some pretty personal things. And I'll never forget, Maryse, what you said to me at the end. You said this one statement that has become part of my mantra into 2021, which was, it seems to me that community is a really important value to you. And I just, again, want to say thank you for bringing that awareness to me, because it really has changed how I've thought about 2021 and the community I'm creating around coaching. So welcome and introduce yourself, Maryse.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear, Jenny, that I had an impact on you the very first time we met. I know we connected instantaneously, like the energy and the fact that you're in Ottawa, and I spent so many years in Ottawa also kind of brought us closer really quickly. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. It's my first time being on a podcast. And especially live, it's a little bit nervous.
I like
it's gonna go.
I like that we're your first.
That's like cool.
You're my first. Yes. So, but it's very exciting and fun. And I gotta say, I mean, it's an honor to be invited to speak on such an important topic. I'm really thrilled also that I get to share my own experiences, and I'm going to do that with a lot of modesty, because I think it's important that whatever I say and we discuss resonates with anyone who listens to this podcast. And I've introduced myself. Okay, so I've done a few things. I've been around for decades around boardroom tables and places where decisions get made. And I've noticed many things, right? And those things I'd like to share and discuss. And I would love also to hear other perspectives. But I'm in no means an expert.
Love it.
All I do is share my insight and why I want to coach folks.
I think you can own the word expert. I think often we feel that expert means we're the only ones who know this, but you're a contributor to the cause, right? As Jenny and I are when we talk about women in leadership. There's so many women who talk about it, but our point is important. I was listening to my daughter. I have two girls and an older son, and my little one who's 9. She's always talking about her table at school. Mommy, I hate my table. Or Mommy, I love my table. I'm like, oh, tell me about your table. Oh, well, Jacob's at it. And I really like Jacob. Not too many people like Jacob, but I like Jacob. Oh, Mommy, I love this table. My best friend is at the table. And I was like, it's so important to them. And my older daughter does it too. And I was like, okay, well, what is making this table? When we talk about own your seat at the table, they love the tables where they are, their friends are at, of course, at that age, but it's because they are feeling heard. They feel important. They feel validated at those tables. And when the tables that I find that they don't like, of course, people that bother them, that make fun of them, that don't listen to them, right? And I was like, that's like us. how do we choose the tables that we sit at?
Mhm.
I thought that was so good. Such a great parallel.
Mhm.
Maryse, how do you choose the tables that you sit at?
Well, you don't, the truth is you don't get to choose every table you sit at, right? I mean, life would be ideal if you got to choose. And you're right. We would look to sit, around people who are supportive, who listen to us, who value our opinions, where we feel comfortable sharing our opinions as well. And we don't have to shout, and we don't have to be in a way that we're not meant to be. But in real life, I mean, we all know that, right? We don't get to pick those tables necessarily. So we do find ourselves sometimes in sitting around tables that are not allowing us necessarily, or that are not doing ourselves justice, right? So I guess the question becomes, how do you make that space valuable, or either a lab where you can learn a few things, and how do you make the best of a situation, and how do you own your space at the table? Because being there physically, like literally being there included, is not enough.
No.
Right? You've got to be in an environment that allows you to share your opinions and to offer a contribution that hopefully is going to benefit the entire organization.
Yeah. So I want to pick up on that Petri dish idea. I love that idea. I know you'll own the word learner. How have you experimented, or maybe you could share some examples of how you've experimented around that table to try different ways of having your voice heard, Maryse?
Well, I'm going to say two things. I'm going to say leadership makes a huge difference, right? In the situation, Sylvia, you mentioned, there may not be one leader or chair around that table, a chairperson, but in life, usually there is a person that's kind of heading a table. It could be your boss, it could be the chairman of a board or chairperson of the board, apologies for that, or it could be someone who's in charge of making sure that there's actually a dialogue happening, and a real dialogue, not just a monologue from a few people, stronger players around that table. So leadership is extremely important, but often leadership is lacking.
Yep.
So when I thought about, because I thinking about the common denominators of what makes it easier to sit at a table, and we just addressed them, right? It's about feeling respected, feeling heard, feeling supported, and it's quite easy actually to own our space in an environment like that, right? Because we just feels right, feels natural. However, when the leadership is not helping you, then how do you do yourself justice, right? So how do you make that space? It becomes like it's another ball game, right? Yeah. And I've been personally in situations where in both situations. So it's quite easy. Like somebody's supportive there, you feel valued. You're just more assertive. But when your opinion is, okay, yeah, sure, you can talk, but I don't really value what you're saying, or we're not really listening, then it becomes difficult. And that's where I think it's important for us as women, and it's not just women, right? A lot of folks find themselves who can't really find their voice, have to take a few actions to own that space. And again, one thing I want to emphasize is it's all about doing ourselves justice, right? It's not about pleasing others.
Agreed.
It's about doing ourselves justice. So, and that's a question that was asked to me a few years ago by someone. I felt confused about the situation. I was kind of doing the pluses and the minuses, and then the person asked me, is this situation doing yourself justice? And I didn't even have to really think. I knew it was instantaneously. I knew the answer was no. And I knew then that what values were being violated by that situation. I knew that I had to course correct things immediately. So it kind of helped me end the confusion, and it was kind of opened the door for me to make the changes that I needed to make to really be true to myself.
Yeah.
This is so important when we talk about leadership, and the feelings I got listening to you, Maryse, is like some days when I used to work in corporate, is some days you go home and you're just feeling you're on a high because you had such a great day. And then there are other times around that table when you go home, you're like, oh my gosh, why am I here? Why am I doing this? And it's all about the leadership. Often, it's all about the people. Yeah. So, our listeners, you're listening today. How does this resonate with you? If you are leaders in your community, how can we step up as leaders, of younger generations, of other people around the table, minorities, women, everybody. There are even men who don't raise their voices or use their voices powerfully, but have such a strong message to share. Yeah. How do we as leaders, Maryse, when you are working with younger people, or other people, how do you lift them up and give them their voices?
True. Well, it can be, logistically speaking, it can be by reaching out to them individually, right? So one-on-one, encouraging, talking about their strengths, talking about the best way that they contribute to the organization, because there's positive and good about everybody has something special to bring to an organization. So how do you encourage them to play to their strengths and rise above, the noise and maybe the things that they feel are dragging them down and things like that. So that's really, really important. And the other way is also a little bit like challenging them, even sometimes in public. Like, what do you think?
Yes.
Your opinion matters. So share your opinions and make sure that others are actually paying attention. As a leader, you are an example, and you're also responsible in large part for the culture that you set within an organization. So you got to walk the talk, right?
Yeah. I'm going to pick up on what Louise, I love that. And that you are an example. Louise here says, did you find how you sat down at the table made a difference? So I think she's talking about how you sat down, meaning when you went in confident, it seemed to make a difference. Maybe you could speak to that.
Oh, definitely. Body language is a huge part of it, right? I'm thinking about that. You have to sit up straight.
We all just
sit up straight. Look at people in the eyes. Oh, absolutely. I would agree that it counts. It matters. It shouldn't always, because there's days where you were just not, you didn't sleep well. You feel a little, not as sharp as you would want to be. So, but yes, it makes a difference. Like, sit up straight, look at people in the eyes. And something I wanted to make is prepare. You gotta, if you want to feel confident, you have to prepare. Like, I'm always, I don't know why, for some reason, I'm thinking about a meeting. You're in a meeting, you're either chairing or not, even if you're not chairing, prepare for the meetings, right? Take 10 minutes, go through the agenda, look at what matters to you, look at what points you want to bring that would help either elevate the whole team, help the organization meet its strategic objectives, whatever they are that day. And make sure that you do yourself justice. Again, that's my theme, right? So how are you going to intervene that day? And
what is your
contribution? And what's going to make you feel proud? What's going to make you feel proud after the meeting? So, I spoke up. I'm happy I did it. Didn't necessarily turn out the way I wanted to, but at least I spoke, so I did myself justice. I'm fine, right?
Yeah. So I love the preparation piece. And one of the trends or themes I see with my women clients is they want to do that, but then they sabotage themselves by their agendas being too full or not finding the time for those kinds of priorities because they're busy serving other people's priorities and whatnot. I make a point that when I board chair, I print my agenda. And like you said, I actually go through and think of key important points that need to be addressed. And I will also prompt, if I have a quiet voice around my board table, I will prompt them in advance to say, I'm really looking forward to you speaking about X. So I love your comment about preparation. And, Sylvia and I use this expression on this show a lot. If you truly loved yourself, how would you behave? And I kind of lines up with doing yourself justice, doesn't it? If you valued your own voice, how would you prepare for that meeting?
Well, and there's this Michelle Obama quote that I've been using while we've been, publicizing this show. And it was, if you're not going to use your voice, don't take up the seat at the table because there's someone else that will, right? But sometimes the other side of the coin there is perhaps they're not feeling validated to do so. So I like Jenny's, like, how do we include that? I also like to hear everybody's voice around the table and what makes sense. I think that's so important. Yes. Yeah.
And I would say that making sure that everybody's heard is also important for the organization itself. You're going to make better decision if you've got more input, right? If an organization or keeps hearing from the same people over and over again,
and we all know
you're doing two things. We know who you are, because they happen to either have a very imposing physical presence or they speak really loud. They're very sure of themselves. It doesn't matter if what they say is right or wrong, right? You just speak loudly, so they must be right. So we kind of equate these things. And the problem is it doesn't serve the organization well, right?
Yeah, when we go down to the floor, right? If you depending on your structures of where you work, but go to the people who are actually doing the job, and they will have lots to tell you. And you may think what they need, but they will tell you, no, that's not what we need at all.
Yeah,
we have all of these ideas, like this is what we can implement, and they'll be happier. Yeah, getting that.
Yeah, the richness also you can get from folks who are a little bit more introverted. That maybe are not going to speak up around the table or be less prone to do so. But there's so much underneath the surface, so much richness, and because they're usually very thoughtful individuals.
Yeah.
So it's important for a leader to have the ability to, dig. It's like a resource. You got to dig for it and get it. But it's important to find ways to get it.
So how have you? I love that comment about introverts. How have you managed to seek them out? I agree. Sometimes they're watching the whole thing play out. How have you engaged them?
Well, as I said, my way was, first of all, the one-on-one meetings. Like, I value your input. I realize that you may not be, extremely comfortable speaking in public, or you might not be, and I respect that. But I'd like to stretch you a little bit, and I'd like to ask, like, I value you. You're important for not only your opinion matters, but it can act. It's also, and you know what? I love the concept of responsibility that Michelle Obama quote. You're also responsible to voice your opinion, right? It's your job to contribute to the discussion and the decisions that are made. And if you don't, then you're kind of, not only are you not doing yourself justice, but you're also not serving the organization as well as you could.
We talk a lot about it is our moral obligation. Maryse, it's our moral obligation to do this. And if we can help somebody, it is our moral obligation to do so. In my coaching practice, and we're all coaches here around this table, I deal a lot with the women who don't find that their voices matter, or it's that fear, I think, of being judged around the table. And perhaps that comes from, all these fears come from long time ago when we're little, and perhaps being told to be seen and not be heard, don't talk when you're not spoken to. And that goes into, I deal with women in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and this is prevalent, and it's something that we just, I think, have to work on. And if we know that is one of our fears, we just need slowly. I like that, we have to pull it out of them and practice. I am a high I personality on the DISC profile. I think Jenny is too, very people, we're very extroverted, but we work with a lot of women who are the quiet types.
Yeah, I just want to offer a comment about that, Sylvia, because I think we all have a little bit of that, don't we?
Yes.
I mean, a little bit of self-doubt, a little bit of this and that. But there comes a point where, and I don't know what time, there's a magic, like there's a point where, you just had enough of this and you get angry. You get angry and say, okay, enough. You can... I can't wait for permission, right? You had enough, and you say, I'm not going to be like that anymore, right? It's enough. I want to honor who I am. And I'm not going to live eternally. So it's about time I start doing, feeling good about myself a little bit more. So the question becomes then, okay, but what do I do? How do I do this? Right? But that, I'm going to say something that I call it anger. Maybe it's not, maybe the word is a bit too strong, but that negative emotion, though, sometimes is what we need in order to trigger change. Right. So sometimes you're pushed to the limit and you say, there's that feeling that emerges is actually, you have to know how to make good use of it. Right.
I think when we're younger, we're so focused on ourself and feeling that we're being watched by everybody. And I was very shy. Like I would cross the street when other people would come my way. And that changed as I got older and went to university and just sat around different tables, right? And now I've lost my train of thought here.
I think you're saying how much space we take up now, right?
Yeah. As I get older, I don't care. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I will tell you my ideas, and if you don't care, that's okay. What is the worst thing that's going to happen, right?
But you need courage, right, to get there. You don't get there from a day to another.
Practice,
if you need courage, you need to accept, like we said a bit earlier, that sometimes it's not going to go your way, and you're going to speak up, and your comments are not going to be necessarily well received, and it's okay, right? So you need the courage. Speaking up means I'm courage. I have courage. I'm going to show courage. I'm going to learn too. The learner mindset is super important. Right. So if I'm going to take space. I do it. Like I sit on a few boards and, God, do I speak? Do I ask questions? Sometimes I feel like I'm probably a little bit annoying.
Yeah. Guilty.
And I know that some people will probably feel that way. And you know what? At first I felt bad, and now I'm saying, it's okay. It's part of the job. Right. So accept that people are going to disagree, accept that, you risk, failure, again, depending how you define failure, but it's part of it. If you want to play the game, you have to accept that to some extent you may lose sometimes, but it's okay. It's part of it.
So a favorite tennis quote, because I couldn't do a podcast without talking about tennis. Andre Agassi used to say, when I go on court, every time I either win or I learn something.
Yeah.
Right. No failure. No. Yes.
Yeah. So, and we don't have to be perfectionists, right? We're too hard on ourselves. We're all very demanding of ourselves, much more than we are usually of other people. Yeah. So how can we give ourselves a break that way? Right?
Well, it prevents us from putting ourselves out there, from moving our careers forward, our businesses forward. The amount of fear people have is quite large. Yeah. But taking that risk, and when we really look at it, you're really like, what that is, it really going to all fall apart that badly? Really, it's not going to in the end.
In my experience, things fall apart when you don't risk anything, and when you don't seize opportunities that are presented to you, right?
Mic drop moment. As I'm thinking about this, I realized something I'm doing that I want to share with our listeners too. Sylvia, do you notice that when big things happen in my life, I will talk to you about them on the Monday or Thursday calls that we have? Finding a community or a couple of women in your life that you can talk through these things. I just realized that's something I'm doing organically that I think I wish each of you had a Sylvia in your life, folks.
Or a Jenny.
Because, or a coach, actually. You know what,
or a coach.
As I'm thinking about this, it's also the role my coach plays, that sort of showing things from a different lens, and to have that sort of debrief, because I think often we have that moment of opportunity. I love your language, and risk something, and then a chance to go back and say, so what went well? What could I have done differently? A learning moment for that. Yeah. Question for you. I'm looking at the time. I'm so bummed because we could talk a long time. How do you think about your role with younger women, with newer executives or newer women? Are you thinking about them? how are you actively engaging their learning for you?
Well, in many ways, I try to be, and I don't want to sound, I'm a woman, I want to sound pompous, but I'm trying to be a bit of a role model, if I can.
Yeah.
And that includes by making mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So I speak up. Sometimes I'm impatient. Oh God, I said, maybe I shouldn't have said this. So, and you're going to keep analyzing and kind of even sometimes second guessing yourself, but I feel so much freer than I used to. It's wonderful. That way, by supporting them in any way I can, right? So it's great to be able to put myself in their shoes and say, okay, so what would I need to hear right now to feel empowered? So I would have done that really a little bit in a more direct way before I did my coaching certification. So now, of course, it's through coaching, right? And I want to do it in two ways. So I want to do it directly with them.
Yeah.
How do you enable them? How do you help them play their strengths? But the other way is also by making them and others better leaders that will enable them.
I love that.
And
I could just imagine, 20 years ago, having had, a mentor like that, how different things, different our lives could be. Did you have mentors like that growing up?
Growing up?
Not growing up, but when
growing
you started
up.
out. When
I
you
think
started
I'm still growing up, to be honest. Sometimes.
I think that's why it came out. When you were 30 and you were just a child.
Yeah, no, I'm still growing up. They weren't, yes, but they were men.
They were men.
They were older men. Yeah, they were older men who enabled me, made me feel exactly what we discussed, right? Enabled, they listened. They had high expectations, though. But I felt highly engaged. And this was, of course, in a work environment, but I felt highly engaged. I felt valued. And I gave my work the extra mile. I would have never let these gentlemen down, right? I'm thinking about two in particular. Oh my God, was it the best jobs I've ever had were working for tough but fair leaders who I felt like were doing me justice. Like we're serving them and working with them was what I needed to feel valued, and they allowed me to honor my strengths and talents and to grow.
I've got goosebumps.
Maryse, before we have to say goodbye here, but what would be one takeaway that you could leave our listeners with in terms of owning their seat at the table?
I would say be patient with yourself. I would say be courageous and take a few risks now and then. But I would say, again, I'm going back with this, ask yourself, like, how am I doing myself justice today? What will I do today that will help me honor my potential and talents? And then do it.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a wonderful conversation. We could do another hour on this. Yeah, I think so. Love your insight on this, Maryse, and your breadth of experience. And I wish you much success in your coaching going forward. If you would like to reach out to Maryse, she can be found on LinkedIn at Maryse Harvey. Maryse Harvey. There you go. Her name is right there on the screen. Jenny, for people who would like to delve further into finding their voices, owning their spaces, what is coming up on International Women's Day?
That just might happen to be my birthday, just saying. On International Women's Day, March 8th, we are, speaking of firsts, Maryse, we are hosting an Your Next 50 workshop. So a chance for women to get together to talk about personal, career, and work.
Building wealth.
And wealth are the three pillars that we're going to be talking about. It's a 2.5-hour workshop. It's a chance to, I don't want to say jumpstart your life, but maybe refocus your life. Maybe take a look at how you got here and where you want to go for the next 50 years of your life. Tickets are on sale. If you get a ticket, purchase one before February 20th, you will be entered into a draw for a money archetype assessment from me and a 30-minute coaching from Sylvia. So please do go ahead on Eventbrite to look for Your Next 50 workshop.
We'll put the link in the comments. It's going to be fun, people, because Jenny and I are fun, and it's just fun,
Yeah, you are.
interactive. We're gonna have breakout sessions. You're gonna meet some amazing women, just like Maryse, and we're gonna.
Yeah.
And it's a chance for us to actually talk with you in person, because we talk, I feel, through the screen. I feel you all there, but this is going to be very interactive. And it's not too late to delve into your dreams and to change the life. If you don't want to change something in your life now, let's sit down and talk about it. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
So March 8th.
March 8th.
I'll be there.
Wonderful, Maryse. That's great. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank
next
you.
week's show is next week's show, but I can't remember right now what it is. But it's going to be good. Thank you, Maryse, for your time today.
You're
everybody
welcome. It was wonderful.
Have a wonderful Thursday, folks.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.